In 1917, high above the Western Front, a Royal Flying Corps pilot climbed into a machine that demanded more from him than skill or courage. The engine in front of him wasn't just loud and unreliable, it was actively hostile. A rotary engine spun its entire mass like a gyroscope, flinging oil outward in a constant spray. That oil didn't stay in the engine, coated his goggles, soaked into his clothes, and filled the air he breathed. Every minute in the sky meant inhaling it, swallowing it, enduring it. And yet he flew anyway, because that same oil was the only thing keeping his engine from seizing midair. Without it, he wouldn't make it home. That substance was castor oil. And the reason it worked then, under extreme heat, violent motion, and life-or-death pressure, is the exact reason it can solve a problem sitting quietly in your driveway today. A slow oil leak. A hardened seal. A repair bill that feels excessive for what seems like a small issue. This isn't a trick or a shortcut. It's the continuation of a principle that has carried through thousands of years of engineering. By the time you finish this, you'll understand not just what to do, but why it works, when it doesn't, and how this knowledge connects ancient builders, early industrial engineers, and wartime pilots to a modern engine problem most people misunderstand. Let's get into it. Long before engines, humans were fighting the same battle: how to keep fluids contained when materials expand, contract, and degrade. Along the Nile, thousands of years ago, Egyptian shipbuilders faced a harsh reality. Wooden planks didn't stay perfectly fitted. Heat expanded them. Cold contracted them. Water found its way in through the smallest gaps. Their solution wasn't rigid, it was adaptive. It packed seams with fibers and sealed them using plant-based resins and bitumen, materials that could flow into gaps when warm and remain flexible when cooled. The key wasn't hardness. It was movement. The seal had to shift with the structure, not resist it. That insight carried across continents. In ancient China, engineers built vast networks of bamboo pipelines to transport brine and natural gas. Bamboo, like wood, flexed and shifted. Joints were weak points. To solve this, they used tung oil mixtures that hardened into a durable yet flexible seal. These weren't temporary fixes. Some of these systems remained functional for centuries. Across time and geography, the same principle kept emerging. Organic compounds, when exposed to heat and pressure, don't just sit on surfaces. They move into imperfections, adapt to them, and stabilize them from within. That idea didn't disappear, it evolved. When aviation entered the First World War, engineers faced a problem unlike anything before. Rotary engines spun entirely around a fixed shaft, creating intense centrifugal force and heat. Traditional lubrication systems simply couldn't function in that environment. Oil couldn't be recycled. It had to be constantly fed into the engine and expelled after a single use. Worse, it mixed directly with fuel inside the combustion chamber. Most oils of the time failed instantly under those conditions. They dissolved, burned off, or lost their protective qualities. Castor oil didn't. Its molecular structure gave it a rare advantage. It resisted mixing with fuel, clung stubbornly to metal surfaces, and maintained a protective film even under extreme stress. It stayed where it was needed, even when everything else was being flung outward. That's why it became indispensable. Tens of thousands of engines depended on it. Pilots endured the consequences, constant exposure, physical discomfort, even sickness, because the alternative was catastrophic failure. That same stubbornness is the key to everything. At the heart of castor oil's effectiveness is its chemistry. Unlike most oils, it contains a high concentration of a compound that gives it polarity. That means its molecules have a slight electrical imbalance, allowing them to interact more strongly with certain materials. In practical terms, this makes it unusually sticky at a microscopic level. It doesn't just coat surfaces, it bonds with them in a way most oils cannot. Now consider what happens inside an aging engine. Over time, rubber seals lose flexibility. Heat cycles drive out the compounds that keep them soft. They shrink, harden, and pull away slightly from the metal they're meant to seal against. The result isn't a dramatic failure, it's a slow leak. Here's where the chemistry matters. The same polarity that allowed castor oil to cling to spinning metal in a wartime engine also allows it to interact with rubber seals. It penetrates the material, restoring some of its lost flexibility and causing it to expand slightly. Not enough to distort it, just enough to close microscopic gaps. This is not speculation. It's established material science. The interaction between polar organic compounds and rubber polymers has been studied extensively. The effect is measurable, repeatable, and widely used, just not in a form most people recognize. Walk into any auto parts store, and you'll find a shelf full of stop leak products. They promise to reduce or eliminate oil leaks without disassembly. What they don't advertise clearly is how they work. The answer is simple. They use compounds designed to soften and swell rubber seals from the inside. Synthetic esters, which are chemically similar to the active components in castor oil, are the primary ingredients in many of these formulas. They're engineered for consistency and compatibility, but the underlying concept is identical. Restore flexibility. Close gaps. Reduce leakage. The difference is cost and accessibility. Commercial products are refined, branded, and sold at a premium. Castor oil, by contrast, is widely available, inexpensive, and unpatentable. It doesn't fit neatly into a business model that relies on differentiation and markup, so it remains overlooked, not because it doesn't work, but because it doesn't generate attention. Understanding the principle is one thing, applying it correctly is another. This approach is specifically suited to slow leaks caused by aging rubber components. Valve cover gaskets, crankshaft seals, and similar parts are the typical candidates. These are not broken parts, they're worn ones. The process itself is straightforward. A small quantity of pure castor oil is introduced into the engine oil system after the engine has reached operating temperature. Heat ensures proper circulation, allowing the oil to reach internal seals. Over the next couple of days, the compound begins interacting with the rubber, gradually restoring flexibility. Results are not instantaneous. This is a chemical process, not a mechanical repair. Improvement is typically observed over time as the material responds. But there are limits, and they matter. If a seal is physically damaged, cracked, torn, or missing material, no chemical treatment will restore it. Structural failures require mechanical solutions. The same applies to leaks caused by metal components, stripped threads, or major system failures. Modern engines introduce another variable. Some use silicone-based seals rather than traditional rubber. These materials do not respond in the same way to castor oil. In those cases, the effect may be negligible. There's also the matter of engine design. High-performance and tightly calibrated systems depend on precise oil characteristics. Altering the composition, even slightly, can have unintended consequences. This is why judgment matters. The method is effective within its scope, but it is not universal. There's a tendency to assume that if something works and isn't widely known, it must be hidden. In reality, the explanation is simpler. Modern automotive repair is structured around diagnosis and replacement. Time, labor, and parts define the industry. A low-cost solution that requires minimal effort doesn't fit easily into that model. Technicians are trained to identify faults and replace components. That's what ensures reliability and accountability. A chemical treatment that may or may not resolve an issue doesn't align with that approach, even if it has a strong scientific basis. So it's not discussed. Not out of secrecy, but out of practicality. From ancient shipbuilders to early industrial engineers to wartime aviators, the same lesson keeps appearing. Materials behave in predictable ways under pressure, heat, and time. Those who understand these behaviors can solve problems others consider inevitable. The Egyptians didn't stop water from entering their ships by making wood stronger. They adapted their materials to work with the environment. Chinese engineers didn't eliminate movement in bamboo pipelines. They sealed them in a way that allowed movement to continue without failure. Pilots in World War I didn't wait for a perfect lubricant, used the one that worked under impossible conditions despite its drawbacks. Each of these examples reflects the same mindset. Understand the material. Understand the environment. Apply the simplest solution that aligns with both. That mindset is what turns knowledge into capability. A slow oil leak is rarely just a mechanical issue. More often it's a material one, something that has aged, hardened, and lost its original properties. When you recognize that, the solution becomes clearer. You're not always fixing a broken part. Sometimes you're restoring a degraded one. And sometimes the most effective way to do that isn't through replacement, but through chemistry that's been understood for centuries. That doesn't make modern repair obsolete. It makes you more informed about when it's necessary. If you found this valuable, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who appreciates the intersection of history, engineering, and real-world problem solving. This is about more than fixing a leak. It's about understanding the principles that have kept systems running for thousands of years and knowing when to apply them.